asking me to zoom it up, but he's not here today, it looks like. So I guess we'll just start off this meeting with going through the agenda items. We'll look at last meeting's action items, which I think there was just one, which was that we wanted to take a look at this pull request that was rewriting the governance model to be closer to the template that we've been developing for the TSC to use for future working groups. So it's a lot closer to that template now, and sort of just removes, we merged it since the last meeting. So, hey Aaron, what's up? Anyways, so that's that. Took care of all the business from last time. Something that I wanted to bring up real quick in this meeting before we get deep into the weeds on all our project updates is that I was thinking, like, as we come up to the Foxy release, we hit the API freeze within the last couple of days, or I mean, maybe they're still working on freezing it. I'm actually not sure on the latest status, but point being, like, release is going to be out in, a month or so. So I want to take a step back with this working group and try to figure out, like, what it is that we want from it. I see that we have a lot of attendance now. I really appreciate everyone dialing in, but I also want to figure out if we're sort of focusing on the things that are delivering value that people want out of a working group for tooling. I think that ROS bag pretty clearly has value, but beyond that, I'm not necessarily hearing a lot of external input. So if you guys want to start thinking about where this might go in the future, and what sort of projects maybe we bring under the scope as we think about expanding the scope, if we do that, I think that'd be a really good topic of discussion for the meeting following the final Foxy release. Sort of have a higher level step back from the weeds of working on these projects. For the next meeting or two, probably we'll be focusing on QA for the projects that we have, just to make sure that everything's stable for this release. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Does that seem like a good idea?
I think that's the perfect time to kind of step back. I agree. Like we've been focusing on kind of the same things over and over again. So once we kind of get them in, seems like a good idea.
Okay, well, so if everyone on the line could just start collecting your ideas about what you think a tooling working group should be, or if you are interested in participating more than you have been, where your interests lie in terms of participating. I'm guessing we probably have quite a few people on the line who are just more interested in, seeing what we're up to, getting the updates. But anybody who's been thinking that they'd like to sort of get their project involved or start a new project or ask for features, I think this would be a good time to be thinking about that. So with that in mind, let's move into the business.
One last point there.
Yeah.
It might be good for people to think of other people in the community that are working on tooling related things that we might want to pull in. If there's any of those out there, we might want to just do some outreach. So we should probably discuss that in that time as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good time to, think about more if we have a bit of bandwidth to contribute to RVs or Arcute, or, those have been candidates for a long time. And I don't know if there is any low-hanging fruits that could be useful for us to go and solve.
Yeah, I don't disagree that I think those would be really promising avenues to explore. So I'm hoping to get exactly those sorts of requests, and if folks have specific ideas about projects that could be done, to sort of get the working group involved in those, because stuff like Arcute and RViz, they have some momentum behind them. So I don't think we would.
We should probably put web visualizers on that list. Arcute, RViz. Like, I know that WebViz type projects have been something that have been kind of teased around for a long time, but we might want to kind of move in that direction.
Agreed. Definitely want to explore it. And, I personally would be excited to work on these sorts of things, but I think what we want to figure out is, who's asking for them.
In context of last week's or like last meeting's presentations, maybe also diagnostics could be a potential candidate of this.
Yeah, so on that note, actually, I guess maybe we could just go to the system metrics project update, because I know that the Devin and Projecta have introduced some new utilities that maybe will replace some of the like ROS1 diagnostic stuff. There's some statistics messages, some key value error messages being introduced to the RCL interfaces. They can speak to that better maybe. So maybe the diagnostic suite doesn't get ported as is, but the capabilities that it had, like the robot monitor, maybe that sort of makes it over for these new message types.
Could be neat.
So I don't know, maybe you guys want to start with, you don't have to do it in the order it's written here, with your updates for the system metrics project. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time like brainstorming ideas right now. What I would really like is for everyone to come up with their ideas, write them down, and then in like 2 meetings from now, when the Foxy releases out, that's when we can really dig in and like devote a whole meeting to figuring out where the future direction goes.
Well, with a lot of help from OSRF, which was much appreciated, we created a new library that's now part of ROS2 repos, which is libstatistics collector. That just has a lot of utilities in C++ to collect statistics, and that's what helps us enable topics of statistics in our CLCPP. And so the 2 measurements you can get when you enable topic statistics is subscriber message period and subscriber message age.
Maybe that's a good topic to bring up, because you mentioned the C++ statistics were added. What I think you should not underestimate is also, like, beside pulling in new things, like what existing projects already under the umbrella or will be under the umbrella, how much of maintenance effort will be necessary. For example, the lib statistics stuff for C++ is good, but that's not the end goal, because we want to have that also in Python, which needs to be pushed down to C, and then it needs to be available in Python. So yeah, we have a first version of that, but there will be a lot of follow-up work. And I think the same is going to be true for like something like ROSBAG. Yeah, we made great progress for Foxy, but there's a lot more on the roadmap or things which need to be improved or added or like feature-wise. So I think there's a lot of like depth to go on each of the projects.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. I need to go back through PRs where we had some discussions with William and Jacob, as there's some tech debt, and I just need to file tickets for all the tech debt.
Yeah, so a future roadmap for gTurtle for the existing projects here is absolutely something we want to focus on. I think that none of these projects are done by any sense. And they'll just require ongoing maintenance at the very least to keep up with new distros. But yeah. So does that capture sort of where we're at right now?
I think so, because it's definitely like an on-call mindset. So if I hear anything from Jacob or William where something's broken there, drop everything and fix it.
Yeah. Cool. So we got the new statistics messages and RCL interfaces, which is great. Cool. Then we'll jump back up to ROSBAG, unless we wanted to add anything to that update. Carson, maybe you want to give your sense of where we're at since the last 2 weeks?
I actually didn't make any progress personally on ROSBAGs. And I think also what I mentioned last time is like I would spend the rest of the time until Foxy actually to stop feature development and actually just dive in testing, maybe sort out some of the, if we can, some of the performance issues which was reported, things like this. But in terms of features, I think we only have that one contribution from a group in Germany, I think, which is for the loop replay. But yeah.
Did we merge that, or did we merge a different one? I can't remember. There was some PR with a new feature that I merged, but now I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. Well,
I think Mabel merged also the topic filters, but I wasn't sure if we discussed it already last meeting.
look down here, and I don't think so. So yeah, topic filters, and from my side, Anas and I from the AWS team have finished all of the functionality for adaptive QoS. So now it can automatically record and play back topics according to their QoS profiles, with some caveats that it warns verbosely about. And also it supports explicit user override for recording and playback on a per topic basis. So now you can record with whatever profile you want, or it will automatically record your latched and sensor data topics, which is a huge usability thing. So I think that we'll want to do some QA on ROS-Bag. It's had a bunch of big features since Eloquent. It's not. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's on the OSRF testing spreadsheet, in which case maybe we want to add our own little test suite for this to have some people go through manually. It might even be a useful sort of working group meeting thing to have a QA session. I'm just going to write down a question mark. Think about that maybe offline, unless anyone has any thoughts.
Yeah, could you do the same for topic statistics as well, please?
Yeah, so maybe it's just across the board. Action items, QA session for working group packages. Cool. For cross-compile, I think that we have nothing new since the last meeting, unless Snehal is on the line and remembers if, no, okay, so nothing new since last meeting. This is one of those projects that I think after the Foxy release, we're going to want to dig into the next big step, which is actual cross-compilation. Right now we're still doing the emulated compilation, and I've been using that locally for a robot project. So I've been sort of getting some use in to feel the pain points, and it's definitely painfully slow, but it does get the job done, which means that I've never had to install compilers on my robot, which feels good. So it's sort of managing dependencies well, starting to come together as a tool. In terms of GitHub Actions, I think we've done some investigation into Docker, but I think we said that last time. So Thomas, could you let me know if we've had any meter yet?
I can talk to that. Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of working. I mean, it's really more, an experiment right now than something. But I tried, opening a PR for system metrics collector, for instance, and instead of taking 2-3 minutes to run the linters, it goes to 50 seconds. So it's already pretty good. And you need to keep in mind that's probably gonna be even more meaningful if you actually try to do a build or something where ROS-Dev would put a lot of dependencies. So there is that, and I don't think that's a secret, so we can say that here. But we are getting paged, or we are gonna soon be paged during working hours, at least for all the repositories we own in the ROS tooling working group. So it's important for us to have really robust CI with very little flakiness. Mm-hmm. And the goal here is also to try to solve the underlying apt flakiness issues that we're seeing here and there with GitHub Actions app repositories, the Azure Sync issues, and so on. And on Wednesday, I think we haven't had issues with the real app repository. So all of that is going to kind of stabilize a bit more the CI on our end. So that's one thing. And then after, so I fixed, Devin fixed an OSX failure because we were not installing NumPy, and somehow it was working until this week. So there is that. And after a lot of like really invisible changes around operational workload. So typically like updating our dependencies automatically. So Anas did a bunch of work around like adding support for depend bots. So now we have bots scanning the GitHub actions. When the dependencies needs to be patched, it's going to open PR automatically. And if our CI pass, it's going to get merged automatically. So that will prevent us from receiving a security vulnerability notifications from GitHub like we had a couple of weeks ago. So much closer to the latest release.
Yeah, man, my notification inbox is just full of Dependabot.
Yeah, I wish there was maybe there is a temper monkey to just, like hide those or something.
Maybe, yeah. The GitHub filters definitely don't have like a filter by involved user.
Yeah, I agree. Not completely ideal.
Yeah, I realized something with, I was trying to, because we have this persistent action CI test failure on ROSbag right now on Linux, and it doesn't show up locally or on the ROS build farm, and I think it has to do with the fact that we're running on Bionic rather than on Focal, whereas all the tests are, Focal related right now, and so I was trying to use the action CI to run a Focal container. But I think the issue I was running into is that the like Python ROSstep apt packages don't yet exist on the Focal version of the OSRF repo. So I'm trying to figure out what we do about that, because we could install them from
which
pip.
app packages?
I think Python ROSstep and like Python 3 catkin package modules. Maybe I'm not correct there, but
They definitely exist because that's what the build farm using.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to have you on the line to verify that. So then for some reason, it's just not finding the packages in that environment. I think my development environment is installing them from pip, which is why I thought maybe that was what was happening. But okay, I'll have to dig further into it then. Thanks, Dirk.
Two things on that. I noticed the PR you opened, Emerson, where we are missing, looks like it's missing lib open splice. So that's probably not there on Focal yet. Unless someone else can confirm.
That one, I don't know. I mean, the Focal builds on the build farm have OpenSplice and Connext, which are the two. Although, actually, no, they probably don't have OpenSplice because we're not. That's deprecated for Foxy.
Yeah. So we might need to update the action to just reflect that. And on a second note, I think Devin found this out. Mac or ROS2 requires SIP to be disabled from Mac OS, and it doesn't look like we can do that using the GitHub Actions, and that may be a reason why we're getting those cryptic errors with like the tests and whatnot on Mac OS. So I did see an issue open in like the GitHub forums. It doesn't look like they are going to provide support for it unless we have our own hosted runners. I.e. our own build farm. So yeah.
Interesting. Not great. Well, then we'll just have to think about that. For now, we get value out of the Linux tests, and theoretically, we could get Windows working. I don't think there's anything wrong with the runners there. We just haven't gotten it working.
Yeah, I think just having those Linux and linters is pretty good enough. So
gets us pretty far. Okay, well, we'll keep thinking about that, and I'll dig into why it can't find those Python apt packages on the Focal container, because apparently it should be able to. So next up on the agenda is community PRs, which I believe we have none this week. So cross compile. Go to community, and we have no issues or pull requests, so we're all good on that. We don't have anyone signed up for a show and tell this week. Does anybody have anything they wanted to talk about before we take a quick look at the project board and probably finish a bit early today? I know everyone's probably got release work backed up. So I'll just give it a few seconds for if anyone has discussion they want to start. Meanwhile, I'll open up the project board. Oh man, I'm in the wrong browser. Oh.
Oh no, you're leaking your password link.
Yeah, it's medium long.
And it's recorded now.
Yeah. Well, okay. What I can do is share a different browser, and then I'll leak all of my tabs. Application window. Cool. So this should be there sure are a lot of tabs. Okay. Can y'all see this screen now?
It's working.
Cool. Okay, so let's take a look at in review exposure feedings. This addresses number 342, and so it looks like we finished the feature. Yeah. Karsten, you think so? Or should I just ping Mabel and find out?
Ping Mabel, but from what I understood, the feature is complete. The tests though are extremely flaky and fail pretty frequently.
Okay. So this is like maybe we need to do some test robustness pass before we close this feature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, there's also the failing tests on Windows for ROS-back records and ROS-back splitting. So I think like either we disable them or we come up with a solution for them, but they fail for the last, I don't know, couple of months already.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I think that should be on the top of our list. I have a Windows setup. I was planning to take a little bit of a look at it next week. The Windows test suite. And we already have a bunch of tests disabled on Windows, so it'd be nice to find a solution where we can re-enable everything.
Yeah, I think it just boils down, boils back to the fact that we can reliably send Control-C to a process on Windows.
Yeah. Did you, on that note, did you explore the launch testing option?
Yeah, and there's this nice comment within launch testing which says exactly this. So there's no way to send a SIG-int on Windows, so they escalate it to SIG-term. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Okay, so maybe the solution is that we don't, or we create a way to test that doesn't rely on Control-C programmatic sending, like provide a start and stop interface and then test using those.
I mean that's certainly a short-term option. I know there was a pull request to use Control-C event, which is the replacement for SIG-int on Windows. But when that was enabled, like so many tests failed, so that pull request was reverted. If the problem of that pull request gets addressed, you can probably continue to use it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I actually picked up some work from there. Like I think Ivan also started that. And I think the caveat of all of this is that like a test has to be run in a dedicated command line, and then you can take control over that remote command line and actually pass in a Control-C, kind of like a visual thing. but it doesn't work if you run them in a batch mode in the same terminal. I don't think it's that trivial, and I think the solution forward here is actually to disable the end-to-end tests on Windows.
Like, I think that's just what we got to do. It feels bad. Like, it feels like that means we're not testing all of our functionality on Windows, and there can be per platform behavioral differences.
I mean, Karsten, you suggested using suggested earlier is a keyboard interface, just like pressing Q to quit or something, or using lifecycle mode. So I think that's a potential alternative, exactly. Or is that too much for now?
I haven't had time to actually start writing code for that. I don't know. I don't think it's applicable for Foxy release, but yeah, I can try give it a shot. But,
yeah, that's fair. It'd be an API change. Although I don't think the ROS bag API is frozen, so we could do it, but it might be a large project.
I mean, if adding a keyboard listener just to the CLI layer, if that's all it takes, is that necessarily mean it's an API change? And I mean, if we just have like a loop running in the background doing that.
The API change isn't a concern for ROSBag right now because it's not in the core. But yeah, it's more just like what's the scope of the work to be done. If it's reasonably small and we can make all the tests fast reliably, then I think it's worth it. But if it's going to be a big effort, then probably we just get things green for now. So I'm just going to say that that's an action item for us to take a look at before the next meeting. It's just like decide on an approach so that we can have a green test suite on all the platforms. Come now. Decide on path to green Windows CI. And this is also figure out how to run roughly to CI local in injections. Okay. Oh yeah, and Focal was like officially released yesterday, which is cool. Love that. Anyways, that was a long diversion here, but take a look at the rest of the project things. Minimal README fix is here, and we still haven't merged it. Perhaps we can review this right now. One comment that it's not optional. Oh, and these all just got like approved a lot. What's going on here? Why would, oh, interesting. So what's happening here is that the names of the tests changed. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll rerun checks and I'll merge this after the meeting if it's green. Looks like we're all good since a long time now. Okay. So in progress, improved Python API. I don't think this is in progress right now until after Foxy, is my guess. March 2nd. Well, I don't know, it doesn't matter that much. Let's take a look at the new issues. Stuff that came in since last time. Support interdependent PRs, simultaneous PRs in action. This is action ROS CI. Hey, speaking of which, did this get closed? I know, Thomas, you were working on supplemental PRs.
Oh yeah, I think it should be done. I think I left that open because we didn't release it. And Karsten's issue was actually a bit related in a way, but there is more work to actually fix it. So
okay, it's not closed yet.
Yeah, let's make sure. Yeah, let's keep that open maybe just for now. I will take a pass on that and see if we can, split that into a smaller chunk of works.
Okay, well, we were looking at cross repository pull request changes. So it requires, a repo file outside of change management within the repo. Yeah, that's true. So how would you do this?
Why does it require a repo file? Maybe I don't have enough context.
Well, I think that the reasoning is that the only way you could accomplish this right now within the current framework is by adding a repos file that tracks the branches of the PRs that you're trying to test. And the desire is to not have to do that because it requires adding that repos file into the actual code of the repository under test. So it's sort of its configuration within the change, which is not good. So that's just like a workaround that Dan found that would work here.
Just beside using a single repos file, you will also lose the context what was upstream, and you need the upstream information, what was the actual repository and the branch, which is a target branch, because you need to do a merge against that one. Otherwise, you're testing only the pull request, but don't consider if it actually works after merging.
Yeah.
So what the build farm does for us is basically, we have a repos file, but you don't need a repos file. You can use ROS install generator, clone the repos, and then you try to switch to the branch of that name just by convention. So you say all the pull requests need to be on the same branch, and then it just switches all repos which have that branch to that branch and builds from there.
Oh, and that's what this implementation suggestion is. Now that you say that, that puts this in context. It's saying if any pull requests are open, merge them to the local source. So I think it means check for the branch on all of the repos that get merged.
Yeah, and the only thing also the build farm currently doesn't do, which it's supposed to do or too, is if you use a fork, you basically lose that connection to the upstream repo. So currently, when you use a branch within the repo, it will do the merge against master. We'll create a temporary branch, merge your changes into that one, and check that it actually applies and then builds. Mm-hmm. But if you do a fork, it doesn't. We don't remember the upstream repo, so you can't do the merge against upstream target branch. And that's something which should work at the end of the day too, because my external people don't have the chance to push into our repo, and it's usually a pain if we test their pull request and then we merge it and then it doesn't work.
Yeah, we have on our team a script that we use that generates a repos file from our fork, because most of our development for the core is on, we don't have push access, write access to the core repos, so we work on our forks and end up having to generate this modified repositories file.
And then the pull request result might be misleading, because you might get a pass, but once you merge it doesn't work.
Yeah. Is that true? For a single repo change, is that true? Because
Yes.
We're modifying the repos file not with exact, but with the tracking branches.
Even with a single one can happen, because basically you don't check if your code merged with upstream actually works, because it might not. There's even a potential case you can't even merge it, right? Yeah. And your code would still build potentially on the pull request alone.
Yeah. So that's the good thing about the at least GitHub has a mergeability check for the PR.
Yeah, you want the being merged and then still doing the right thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the build farm doesn't do that for forked branches either. So
yeah. So I'm just gonna say that this is maybe non-trivial, but we want to consider branches on forks for this functionality as well. To merge onto the upstream master fork building. Okay. I'm going to move this bottom of the backlog. Yeah, it seems like a pretty critical feature. Right now, I think we manage forks. I don't know how the checkout action works if it does a merge. But if it doesn't, then maybe we need to think about that too anyways. Failure with ROS. Well, I don't know if it's a bug for real, but it is a bug report. I think that we should just take this offline to try and resolve this person's issue, but I'll move it to the top of the backlog where bugs go. Yeah, totally. Subscribing without template parameter. Yeah, so I really think that we would be well off moving the generic subscription to publisher out externally to ROS bag, perhaps migrating them into our sales CPP or making a separate library. That, like, whether we do one or the other, I'm not sure about, but it was just coming up like yesterday that some other project would be a lot easier with these because it was just trying to count messages coming in and it didn't need to know the types and it needed to dynamically subscribe. So
on that end, there's a pull request open from Denso on RCL CPP. Unfortunately, they weren't really responsive over the last couple of days, and I don't know if we can get that in, but there are 2 open PRs on RCL CPP for that.
Oh, there are. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that we're past the point of freeze for that. It wasn't. I don't even think that was on the list of.
If you go up there, like the 2 of like DNAAE, I think.
Oh, they didn't.
1076 and 1077.
Yeah. These are confusing names. Or this part. I guess that's just his branch name. Yeah. Okay. It would be useful to rename these to something a little bit more informative than a branch name, but it's okay. Okay, so this is, oh yeah, they're kind of big changes. Well, gturtle, we can go through the review and figure these out. So I'm just going to say that I'm going to mention these. We might, if you're saying he was not very responsive, maybe we'll have to have someone else pick it up.
I mean, they are responsive. It's just like, unfortunately, we haven't gotten sorted that out just in the last couple of days before the freeze.
Yeah, a little too close to the wire. Cool. Okay, just gonna there. Foxy support. Yes, to the cross-compile tool. Once it is released, I will add it as a target. We also have Noetic ticket open to add, but that's not released yet either. Does anyone know if you do probably, Dirk, when the release date is for Noetic?
May 23rd.
Okay.
World Turtle Day.
World Turtle Day. I don't have that internalized yet. Okay, Windows, end-to-end test failures. We got to take care of these. I'm going to assign it to myself. I am planning to look at it within this upcoming week so that we can, and at the very least, I'll put up a PR disabling the test that has been failing reliably for months on Windows because it's not a good test. So this one, the periodic action CI failures, also big issue. because I think it has to do with just running on Bionic when it is Foxy code, and that's not supported because I can't reproduce this failure anywhere else, even on like a stressed out worker that is slow. So we just need to take care of these before the release. We need to get the CI updated to the proper operating system anyway. Return descriptive error codes from E2E tests for system metrics collector. Okay. And I have never worked on Arch for ROS. Is it technically supported, or is it just sort of community support? The anecdotally working situation.
I mean, it's community supported, but I don't see why it would not be working. I mean, you know,
Well,
you have glitches here and there, but
yeah, how much effort do we want to put into figuring out a build error on Arch? Probably it would be good to do. Portable code is good. It might be a Python 3.8 related thing.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we should probably align with the rep and just say that, you know, for everything which is not tier 1 or tier 2, I guess, you know, just PRs welcome, but we won't look at it.
I think this guy already opened up ER for this fix. Yeah.
Rearranging commits to fix issue.
He literally just moved the header from like one place to another.
Okay. So
Probably rearranging header or something. Yeah.
I like. Sorry. Some people might be annoyed by that, but if I can't understand the PR title, then I have a hard time understanding what I'm supposed to be reviewing. Okay, so I will take a look at this because the it has conflicts because it was only open 5 hours ago. It's just out of date, I guess. Cool. Well, I'm going to send that one to me. In review, cool. Did we determine that we cannot do this?
I mean, I technically opened up. Yeah. So if you look at the link I posted, someone else posted in like the GitHub forums, and they said that the solution is you have to use your own runner.
Well, I think we need to just have due diligence, right? Because that's a one reply with like no likes or whatever. So, you know, it's just some random person on the internet telling that it's what they think, you know. I don't know what it means, but I think it's easy to just, you know, try to run whatever command you need to try to disable SIP and see if you actually can get to do it or not. Just, you know, being cautious.
Yeah, I did open up feedback, so at least I threw that out there, trying to see if they get back, but we'll see.
Yeah, the problem is, like, I think when you disable it, it requires a reboot, or it requires you to boot into a special mode to do it, so it might be quite difficult on the runners. But I'll move this to the backlog, and we can close it if and when we come to a conclusion. Is this opened 16 hours ago? It must still be true.
Yeah, it's fairly trivial to fix, and we should just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody want to volunteer?
I can take it.
Was that Becca? Cool.
Assign it to me.
I think that this will be really important as the Foxy release comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right, that's all the new issues. Unless anyone had anything else they wanted to specifically talk about, I think that would probably be good for today.
Maybe just one last note. It's not appearing in this board, but we have that in our team backlog. So we're going to build CI for Focal. So just FYI, I think it's probably, we should probably include the ROS-back 2 in the scope of just trying to add a new matrix value.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly more than that because it seems like the same set of steps is not working properly.
Yeah, but if we fix for one repo, it should be fixed for everyone. I mean, basically, Action ROS CI is going to get support, and then that's going to trickle down nicely, hopefully.
Yeah. Use ROS-back 2 as a first adopter. Yes, I think that would be really important because that theoretically should fix our failing test. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I will plan to see you all again in 2 weeks, which will be May 8th, and the meeting after that will be the 22nd, which is one day before World Turtle Day, if I remember correctly. And that 22nd meeting, I think that would be a really good time to do our think big situation. So just take notes. If you want to add anything to this document here so that it is not lost, I'll create the next 2 agendas just so that there's some place to add your comments. Yeah, okay. Thanks so much. See y'all again next time.